The store always sounded bigger at night. Not louder, never louder, but wider, like the hum of the fluorescent lights stretched farther than the walls could contain. It seeped into the shelving, into the rows of plastic-wrapped food and glossy labels, into the thin gaps between products where dust gathered and never quite settled. I worked the night shift alone. Midnight to 6. The kind of hours that made time feel like it belonged to someone else. The convenience store sat on the edge of a road that saw less traffic with each passing month. Fewer cars. Fewer customers. Even the regulars had started thinning out, like they'd been slowly erased from a list no one kept. By 2 a.m., the world outside the glass doors became a black mirror. The parking lot lights buzzed faintly, illuminating empty asphalt. Beyond that, nothing. Inside, everything stayed the same. Too much the same. I stood behind the counter, watching the aisles through the convex mirror mounted high in the corner. It distorted the space just enough to make the rows feel longer than they were. I'd counted them before. 8 aisles, each about 20 meters long. Clean lines. Predictable. Except for aisle 6. I didn't notice anything wrong with it at first. Not really. Just small things. The kind of things you write off because the alternative requires effort. The first time, I thought I'd misplaced a box. It was a stack of instant ramen cups, cheap ones, with bright orange lids. I'd stocked them myself around midnight, arranging them in neat rows, labels facing forward. A small, satisfying act. Order imposed on something otherwise meaningless. At around 1:30, I walked down aisle 6 to grab a drink from the fridge at the back. The ramen cups were gone. Not all of them. Just one row. I frowned, crouched down, and checked the shelf above. Same brand. Same orange lids. But the missing row wasn't there. I checked the floor. Nothing. Did someone come in? I muttered, though I knew they hadn't. The bell over the door hadn't rung. I went back to the counter and checked the security monitor. No one. Just the empty aisles, frozen in grainy black and white. The timestamp flickered in the corner, counting seconds that felt increasingly arbitrary. I rewound the footage a few minutes. The ramen cups were there. I scrubbed forward. They weren't. No movement. No interruption. Just absence. I stared at the screen longer than I meant to. The fluorescent hum seemed to sharpen, drilling into the base of my skull. Glitch. I said out loud. The words sounded thin in the empty store. I went back to aisle 6. The ramen cups were back. Exactly where I'd left them. After that, I started paying attention. Not obsessively. Not at first. Just noticing. A bottle of water would appear one shelf higher than I remembered placing it. A candy bar would show up twice in the same row, identical down to the slight crease in the wrapper. Once, I found a packet of gum with the price sticker applied upside down. I peeled it off, threw it away, and went back to the counter. 5 minutes later, the same packet was on the shelf again, sticker upside down. I stopped touching things after that. Around 2:40, I heard footsteps. They came from aisle 6. Slow, even, measured. I looked up from the register, expecting to see someone rounding the corner. No one did. The footsteps continued, soft rubber soles against tile. A steady rhythm. Too steady. I stepped out from behind the counter. Hello, I called. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed felt attentive. Like the store was listening back. I walked toward aisle 6, each step louder than it should have been. The fluorescent lights above flickered once, not enough to plunge anything into darkness, just enough to remind me they could. I turned into the aisle. Empty. Shelves lined both sides, stacked with canned goods, boxed snacks, instant meals. The same as always. But something felt longer. I took a few steps down the aisle, my eyes scanning the shelves. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I reached the midpoint, where the small freezer unit hummed quietly against the back wall, and stopped. The footsteps started again. Behind me. I spun around. No one. But the sound continued, approaching. 1 step. 2. I backed up instinctively, my shoulder brushing against a row of plastic-wrapped bread. The footsteps stopped again. I stood there, breathing shallowly, waiting. Nothing. Just the hum of the lights. The faint vibration of the freezer. I laughed then. A short, brittle sound. Okay. I said to no one. Okay. I turned and walked back toward the front of the store. The aisle seemed longer. I didn't measure it. I didn't count steps. I just walked. And walked. And walked. The shelves didn't change. The products stayed the same. The same labels, the same colors, repeating in a way that felt just slightly off. I stopped. I turned around. The back of the aisle was gone. Not gone like missing. Gone like it had never been there. In its place was more shelving. More rows. The same arrangement, repeating. My chest tightened. This isn't funny, I said. My voice didn't echo. It didn't carry. It just stopped, a few feet in front of me. I took a step backward. The front of the store came into view again. The counter. The door. The glass reflecting the interior lights. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. I walked out of the aisle and didn't look back. At 3:12 a.m., the man came in. The bell over the door rang, sharp, sudden, cutting through the static hum of the store. I flinched. Welcome, I called automatically, my voice steadier than I felt. The man didn't respond right away. He stood just inside the door, as if adjusting to the light. He wore a dark jacket, zipped up despite the mild night. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd been walking for a while. He looked around the store slowly, his gaze lingering on each aisle. Then he looked at me. There was something familiar about him. Not his face, exactly. Just the way he looked at me. Like he already knew what I was going to say. He approached the counter, his footsteps soft but deliberate. Hey, I said. He didn't greet me back. Instead, he leaned slightly forward and asked, has the aisle that loops let anyone out? The question landed like something already said. I blinked. What? He didn't repeat himself immediately. He just watched me, his expression unreadable. The aisle, he said finally. The one that loops. Has it let anyone out? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. I don't know what you mean, I said. His eyes flicked, just briefly, toward aisle 6. Then back to me. You do, he said. I felt a chill crawl up the back of my neck. We don't have. I started, then stopped. The words felt wrong before they left my mouth. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. What time is it? He asked. I glanced at the register. 3:13. He nodded, as if confirming something. It was 3:13 last time, too, he said. A faint ringing started in my ears. What do you mean, last time? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a receipt. He placed it on the counter and slid it toward me. I looked down. The paper was slightly crumpled, the ink a little faded. At the top, the store's name. Below that, a list of items. Instant ramen X3. Bottled water X1. Gum X1. Total 4.80. Time 3:13 a.m. Date today. My hands felt suddenly cold. This is from tonight, I said. Yes, he said. But I didn't. I stopped. A flicker of something moved through my mind. A half-formed memory. The sound of the register opening. The weight of coins in my hand. I looked up at him. I don't remember this. He nodded again, like he'd expected that. You wouldn't, he said. Not all of it. A silence stretched between us. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder. What happens in there? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He followed my gaze to aisle 6. It repeats, he said. But not exactly. It adjusts. To what? To you. I swallowed. And you've been in it. His jaw tightened slightly. I think so. Think. He let out a short breath, almost a laugh. That's the problem. He tapped the receipt. I've walked in here before. Asked you the same question. A pulse of something, fear, recognition, something else, moved through me. And you said you didn't know. My mouth felt dry. What happened then? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked past me, toward the aisles. Do you remember me? He asked. I hesitated. No, I said. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture seemed to sink. Yeah, he said softly. That's what you said before. The bell over the door rang again. Both of us turned. No one was there. The door was closed. The parking lot beyond the glass was empty. But the bell had rung. We looked back at each other. Did someone come in? I asked. He shook his head slowly. No, he said. Someone left. We went to aisle 6 together. I don't remember deciding to. One moment we were at the counter, the next we were standing at the mouth of the aisle, side by side. It looked normal. Of course it did. That's how it starts, he said quietly. I glanced at him. You don't have to come with me, I said. He let out a small, humorless laugh. I think I already have. We stepped in. The air felt different immediately. Not colder, not warmer, just denser. Like the space resisted movement in a way the rest of the store didn't. We walked side by side, our footsteps slightly out of sync. The shelves stretched ahead of us, identical rows repeating in a way that made it hard to focus. Don't look at the products too long, he said. Why? They start to match. I frowned. What does that mean? He didn't answer. We reached the midpoint. The freezer hummed softly. I glanced at it. Inside, rows of identical frozen meals, each box perfectly aligned. Too perfectly. I looked closer. The same scratch on the plastic window. The same slight dent in the corner. Repeated. Every box the same. I stepped back. Okay. I said. Okay. Keep moving, he said. We did. The aisle didn't end. Of course it didn't. It just continued. The shelves repeated. The products looped. The fluorescent lights above flickered in a pattern that almost, but not quite, aligned with our steps. I felt something slipping. Not physically. Something else. A sense of direction. Of sequence. How long have we been walking? I asked. He didn't check a watch. I don't know, he said. It doesn't track right in here. I turned to look behind us. The way back looked the same as the way forward. Endless shelving. Endless repetition. Okay. I said again, my voice tighter now. We just turn around. We did. We walked. Nothing changed. The same shelves. The same products. The same hum. A sound echoed faintly ahead of us. Footsteps. Not ours. I stopped. So it's not just us, I said. He didn't respond. The footsteps grew louder. Approaching. I felt a strange, twisting sensation in my chest. Recognition. The rhythm was familiar. Too familiar. The footsteps stopped a few meters ahead. I stared into the aisle, my eyes straining. A figure stood there. Back turned to us. Same height as me. Same posture. Same uniform. My breath caught. No, I whispered. The figure shifted slightly. I saw the edge of their face in profile. It was me. Not exactly. Close enough. What is that? I asked. He didn't answer. Hey, I called out. The figure didn't respond. It just stood there, as if waiting. For what? I said. For you to catch up, the man said quietly. A cold wave moved through me. The figure ahead took a step forward. We followed. Of course we did. We always had. At some point, I realized something was wrong with my hands. They felt unfamiliar. Not physically. They moved when I told them to. They looked the same, but the memory of them, of using them, of owning them, felt thin. Like it had been copied and pasted one too many times. I flexed my fingers. Do you feel that? I asked. Yeah, he said. What is it? He took a moment to answer. I think it's loss, he said. But not all at once. Just pieces. We kept walking. The figure ahead of us remained just out of reach. Always the same distance away. How do we get out? I asked. He was quiet for a long time. I think, he said slowly, that we already did. I stopped. What? He turned to look at me. His face seemed less distinct than before. The edges softer, like they weren't fully decided. The store, he said. The counter. The door. I think that's the exit. Then why are we still here? He looked back down the aisle. Because something of us didn't leave. The words settled into me with a weight I couldn't shake. The figure ahead stopped again. So did we. It turned. Fully this time. It was me. But not me. The eyes were wrong. Too still. Too certain. It smiled. A small, knowing expression. You're late, it said. My voice. But not quite. What? I stammered. You always take longer this time, it said. This time, I echoed. It tilted its head. Do you remember the man? It asked. I glanced at him beside me. He was still there. I think. Yes, I said. You didn't. Before, it said. A pressure built in my head. Fragments of memory, sliding against each other. The man at the counter. The receipt. The question. Asked again. And again. And again. Has the aisle that loops let anyone out? The bell ringing. No one there. Someone leaving. Or arriving. Or both. I've been here, I whispered. The figure smiled wider. Yes, it said. The man beside me stepped forward. Then how do we end it? He asked. The figure looked at him. For a moment, something like recognition flickered across its face. Then it faded. You don't, it said. The lights above flickered sharply. The hum deepened. The shelves seemed to bend, just slightly, curving inward. The space compressed, expanded, reset. The figure stepped past us. Brushed against my shoulder. Cold. Familiar. It walked behind us. Its footsteps synced with mine. Perfectly. I turned. It was gone. The bell over the door rang. Sharp. Sudden. I stood behind the counter, blinking. Welcome, I said automatically. The store was quiet. Empty. The fluorescent lights hummed. I glanced at the clock. 3:12 a.m. A faint unease settled in my chest. I looked down at the counter. A receipt lay there. Crumpled. Unfamiliar. I picked it up. Instant ramen. Bottled water. Gum. 3:13 a.m. Today. The bell rang again. I looked up. A man stood just inside the door, adjusting to the light. Something about him felt known. He approached the counter slowly. Hey, I said. He didn't respond. Instead, he leaned forward slightly and asked, has the aisle that loops let anyone out? I opened my mouth. Paused. Somewhere, deep and distant, something in me tried to answer. Tried to remember. The hum of the lights stretched wider. Aisle 6 waited. And for just a moment, so brief it almost slipped away, I felt it. The certainty that I had already stepped into it. That I had already walked its length. That I had already asked this question. Or answered it. Or both. I blinked. And the hallway of shelves seemed to shift, just slightly, as if correcting itself. I don't know what you mean, I said. The words felt practiced. Worn smooth. The man nodded, like he'd expected that. Behind him, the glass doors reflected the store. The aisles. The lights. And for a fraction of a second, something moved in aisle 6. Walking. Waiting. Remembering me back. The first time the floor pulsed, I thought it was a passing truck. It was a soft, upward pressure, barely enough to register, like the store had inhaled beneath my feet. I paused mid-scan, a pack of gum hovering over the barcode reader, and waited for the rumble of an engine outside. Nothing came, just the low hum of fluorescent lights and the distant click of the cooler fan cycling on. I looked down. The tiles were the same scuffed off-white they'd always been, cracked in a few places, dulled by years of foot traffic and cheap cleaning solution. The grout lines were darkened, uneven. Normal. I finished scanning the gum. The register beeped. The drawer slid open. Coins clinked as I handed change to a man who didn't look at me. He smelled faintly of motor oil and something sour, like old rain trapped in fabric. You feel that? I asked, before I could stop myself. He blinked. Slow. Feel what? The floor. Just now. He shifted his weight, as if testing it. The tiles didn't move. Not that I could see. No, he said, already turning away. Place always feels dead to me. The door chimed as he left. The sound echoed longer than it should have, thin and metallic, stretching down the aisles like it had somewhere to go. Dead. I stood there for a moment longer, listening. Nothing pulsed again. The store sat at the edge of town, where the road thinned into cracked asphalt and the streetlights grew sparse and unreliable. Half the bulbs outside had gone out years ago, leaving pockets of shadow that swallowed the parking lot in uneven patches. Inside, everything was too bright. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a flat, clinical glow over rows of snacks, canned goods, and dusty novelty items that hadn't sold in years. The aisles stretched longer than they should have, Or maybe that was just how it felt during the night shift, like distance itself had loosened, drifted a little. I'd been working there for 3 months. Graveyard shift. Midnight to 6. Easy money, they said. Quiet. They were right about that. Most nights, I'd see maybe 2 or 3 customers. Truckers passing through, the occasional insomniac, someone desperate enough to buy instant noodles and a single beer at 3 in the morning. The rest of the time, it was just me, the hum of electricity, and the soft mechanical rhythms of a place that never quite slept. I told myself the pulse had been my imagination. A muscle twitch, a shift in balance, something internal. That explanation held, until it didn't. It happened again around 2:17 a.m. I remember the time because I'd been staring at the digital clock above the cigarette display, watching the minutes drag. The numbers flipped from 2:16 to 2:17, and at that exact moment, the floor pressed upward beneath my shoes. Stronger this time. Not enough to move me, but enough to be undeniable. A slow, deliberate push, then release. Like a heartbeat. I froze. Waited. 3 seconds. 4. Then, another pulse. This one softer, like an echo. I stepped back from the counter. The tiles under me felt different. Not unstable, not shifting, but aware. As if my weight meant something now. As if it was being registered. Okay. I muttered, the words sounding too loud in the empty store. I stepped forward. The floor pulsed again, right under my leading foot. Not random. Responsive. I swallowed. Stop. It didn't. Another pulse, faint but precise, followed the movement of my breath. Inhale, exhale, slightly out of sync, but close enough to make my chest tighten. I stepped off the tile. The sensation vanished. I stood there, half crouched, one foot hovering over the ground, waiting for it to happen again. Nothing. Slowly, carefully, I placed my foot back down. The floor remained still. I exhaled. Just stress, I said to no one. Long shift. That's all. But I didn't believe it. The first receipt printed before a purchase at 2:43 a.m. I hadn't touched the register. No one had come in. I was halfway down aisle 4, restocking chips, when I heard the whir of the printer from the front. The sound was sharp in the quiet. Mechanical. Intentional. I walked back slowly, each step measured, listening for that pulse again. Nothing. The counter looked the same. The register screen was dark, idle. But a strip of receipt paper curled over the edge of the machine, freshly printed, still warm. I tore it off. There was no item listed. No price. No transaction number. Just a single line. 2:51 a.m., you remember this. I stared at it. The timestamp was wrong. It was 2:44. I checked the clock again, just to be sure. 2:44. The receipt crinkled in my hand. You remember this, I read aloud, the words tasting strange. Remember what? The floor pulsed beneath me. Harder this time. I staggered slightly, catching myself on the counter. The timing. It was closer now, not matching my heartbeat exactly, but approaching it. Closing the gap, I pressed my hand to my chest. My pulse was fast, uneven. The floor answered, a fraction of a second behind. The man came in at 3:12 a.m. I know the time because the clock skipped from 3:09 to 3:12 when the door chimed. Not flickered, skipped. One moment it was 3:09, the next it wasn't. I didn't question it then. Not immediately. I was too focused on him. He didn't look like a regular. Too clean, in a way that didn't match the place. His clothes were plain. Dark jacket, dark pants, but they sat on him like they belonged somewhere else. He didn't browse. Didn't hesitate. He walked straight to the counter and placed both hands on it, leaning forward slightly, as if he were listening for something beneath the surface. Has it started yet? He asked. My mouth went dry. Has what started? He glanced at me, eyes sharp. The rhythm. The floor pulsed. He smiled, faint. Ah, he said. You've felt it. I didn't answer. He tapped the counter twice with his fingers. Tap, tap. The floor responded. 2 quick pulses, perfectly spaced. My stomach dropped. What is that? I asked. He tilted his head, considering. It's memory, he said. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. He straightened, looking around the store. Places like this, they accumulate time, movement, decisions. Every step someone takes, every choice, they leave an imprint. The lights flickered. Not all of them, just the ones above aisle 6. They dimmed, then brightened again, in a slow, steady pattern. Pulse. Most places, he continued, the imprints fade, dissipate. But sometimes, he gestured downward, toward the floor. Sometimes they synchronize. With what? He looked at me again, and this time his expression was almost sympathetic. You. The word settled into the air between us. That's not. I started. The register word again. Another receipt printed. We both looked at it. I tore it off with shaking hands. 3:17 a.m. Do you remember him? The man smiled, wider now. It's asking you, he said. Asking me what? To select. The floor pulsed, hard enough to rattle the shelves. A bag of chips slid forward and fell to the ground. Neither of us moved to pick it up. I don't understand, I said. You will. He stepped back from the counter. Everyone does, eventually. Wait. But he was already turning away. Hey, I called. You can't just. What does that mean? He paused at the door, one hand on the handle. The rhythm of selection, he said without looking back. It chooses what stays, what repeats, what gets remembered. The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't all come back on at once. Some lagged behind. Some pulsed in different intervals. Out of sync. Try not to resist it, he added. That only makes it louder. The door chimed as he left. The sound didn't echo this time. It thudded, heavy and final. After he left, the store felt crowded. Not physically. The aisles were still empty. The shelves unchanged. But the air had weight now, a density that pressed against my skin. The floor pulsed steadily beneath me. Not matching my heartbeat anymore. Leading it. I tried to ignore it. Went back to restocking. Straightened products that didn't need straightening. Counted inventory I'd already counted. Anything to keep moving. But the pulses followed. Every step I took was answered. Every pause, mirrored. The lights began to join in. Not all at once. One fixture at a time. Aisle 3 dimmed and brightened in a slow, breathing rhythm. Aisle 5 followed, slightly delayed. Then aisle 2, faster, almost impatient. The store was losing its uniformity. Becoming layered. I looked down aisle 7. It seemed longer than before. Not dramatically. Just enough that the back wall felt farther away than I remembered. I took a step toward it. The floor pulsed. Hard. Insistent. I stopped. The pulse softened. Okay. I whispered. Okay. I get it. I didn't. But I was starting to understand that the store didn't care. The next receipt printed at 3:51 a.m. I didn't go to it right away. I stood in the middle of the store, listening to the overlapping rhythms, the floor, the lights, the faint hum of the coolers, all of it slightly out of phase, like a heart with too many chambers. Eventually, I walked back to the counter. The paper waited, curled, patient. I tore it off. 4:03 a.m., you were here before. My breath hitched. No, I said. No, I wasn't. The floor pulsed. Stronger. Closer. A memory flickered at the edge of my mind, something small, insignificant. A shift that felt longer than it should have. A moment where the clock didn't quite line up. I shook my head. No. The lights above me dimmed. The store grew darker, but not uniformly. Shadows pooled in the corners of aisles, thick and slow moving. The products on the shelves seemed wrong. Not different, exactly. Just misplaced. A brand of cereal I didn't recognize sat where the chips should be. Bottles of soda lined up in perfect, unnatural symmetry, labels all facing the same direction with surgical precision. I reached out to touch one. The floor pulsed. My hand stopped midair. Selection, I whispered. The word felt like it had weight now. Like it mattered. I pulled my hand back. The pulse eased. Time stopped making sense after that. The clock skipped forward, backward, sometimes stuttering between numbers as if it couldn't decide what came next. Customers didn't come in. Or maybe they did, and I didn't see them. Once, I heard the door chime and turned to greet someone, but the entrance was empty, the glass reflecting only the interior of the store, stretched and warped. Another time, I found a basket on the counter, filled with items I hadn't seen anyone pick up. The receipt printed on its own. Already selected. No price. No list. Just that. The floor pulsed in approval. I started to feel it in my chest. Not just as a response. As an origin. My heartbeat slowed, adjusted, aligning itself with the store's rhythm. Or the store aligned with me. I couldn't tell which. I found the first duplicate at what I think was 4:27 a.m. He was standing at the end of aisle 6, facing away from me. Wearing my uniform. Same posture. Same slight tilt of the head I'd noticed in reflections but never consciously registered. For a moment, I thought it was a mirror. Then he moved. Just a fraction. Out of sync with me. The floor pulsed. Loud. I took a step forward. He didn't. Hey, I said, my voice thin. He didn't respond. I took another step. The aisle stretched. The distance between us increased, even as I moved closer. The shelves on either side seemed to lean inward, narrowing the space. The lights above flickered in a rapid, uneven pattern. Pulse. 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 My chest tightened. Turn around, I said. He didn't. The floor pulsed again, harder than before. I stumbled. When I looked up, he was gone. The aisle was empty. Short again. Normal. I was alone. The final receipt printed at 5:02 a.m. I knew it was final before I read it. The store had settled into a single, unified rhythm. The lights, the floor, the hum of the machines, all of it synchronized. Steady. Certain. Like a heart that had found its pace. I walked to the counter slowly. My steps matched the pulse perfectly now. No lag. No echo. Just one continuous beat. I tore off the receipt. 5 a.m. You are selected. I didn't feel fear. Not anymore. Just a strange, hollow clarity. Selected for what? I asked. The store answered. The shelves shifted. Products slid, rearranged themselves into patterns I couldn't quite follow. The aisles extended, then contracted, like lungs breathing in slow, deliberate cycles. The floor pulsed beneath me. And this time, it didn't stop. It held. A sustained pressure, lifting me slightly, supporting my weight in a way that felt intentional. Welcoming. My reflection in the glass door caught my eye. For a moment, I didn't recognize it. The face was mine, but the expression was wrong. Calm. Expectant. Behind me, in the reflection, I saw movement. Another version of me, stepping into frame. Then another. And another. Each one slightly different. Posture, angle, timing, but all wearing the same uniform, all moving to the same rhythm. The store wasn't empty. It was full of me. Or versions of me. Iterations. Selections. I turned around. There was no one there. The floor pulsed. I understood. You remember this, I said, echoing the first receipt. The words felt right now. True. A memory surfaced. Standing behind the counter, asking a customer if they felt it. The same question I'd asked hours ago. Or days. Or longer. The man's answer. Place always feels dead to me. But it hadn't been dead. It had been waiting. For alignment. For synchronization. For someone to match its rhythm closely enough to be absorbed into it. To become part of its memory. Part of its selection. The lights dimmed slightly, softening. The store felt complete. I stepped behind the counter. The register turned on by itself. The screen glowed. Ready. The floor pulsed beneath me, steady and sure. In time with my heart. Or maybe the other way around. The door chimed. I looked up. A man stood in the entrance, hesitating. He looked tired. Confused. Like he hadn't meant to stop here. Hey, I said, my voice calm, practiced. He stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Late night, he muttered, approaching the counter. Yeah, I said. It gets quiet out here. He glanced around, uneasy. Feels off, he said. I smiled. Does it? He shifted his weight. The floor pulsed beneath him. He froze. You feel that? He asked. I tilted my head, listening. The rhythm adjusted slightly, accommodating him. Expanding. Inviting. Feel what? I said. He looked down at his feet, then back at me. The floor. It just. The register word. A receipt began to print. He flinched. I reached for it, tearing it off before he could see. I didn't need to read it. I already knew what it said. I placed my hands on the counter, leaning forward slightly. Don't worry, I said. The floor pulsed. Soft. Reassuring. You'll get used to it. Behind him, the aisle stretched just a little longer. The lights flickered into a new pattern. And somewhere beneath it all, deep in the structure of the store, something old and patient adjusted its rhythm, making room for another memory.